So, welcome to Rad Reads. This is our podcast about books that are rad. I'm your host, Kaylina Radcliffe, and our co-host, the Rad Reverend, is with us today, Timothy Radcliffe. Today, we also welcome a rad adjacent guest, CJ, the Wizard Crompton. CJ is a musician, a film connoisseur, and recently has discovered a love of audiobooks and reading. And he's also my brother, so that's why he's rad adjacent. So, thank you for joining us, CJ.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited about this.
So tell us a little bit about your background in film and what made you fall in love with film as a storytelling medium.
So that's it's a good question. Really, I just kind of fell into loving it. I think it started with really enjoying going to the theater. I still, to this day, even probably after we're done here, I'm probably going to go see a movie tonight. I just think there's something special about. There used to be, when they used to talk about trailers, or when they used to do trailers, they used to say things like the movie event of the summer, and I really think going to the theater and experience a movie like in front of you like that, I feel like it's an event. You get your popcorn, you get your pretzel bites, you get your soda, your candy, and you sit back and just relax. Um, that started there. One of my first jobs was working at a movie theater, and that's where I really got to experience a lot of fun, the fun and joy of being at the theater. So I think when I was like 17, getting ready to figure out college, there were a few things that I was looking into. One, I wanted to play hockey, didn't work out. And then I wanted to study film. So I did go and take some film classes for a couple of years, and then moved to LA for a year. So, that's, and then now we're way down the line, and I really focus a lot more on music and just enjoy film as a medium these days. I think you asked me to give a few of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that, and you asked for 5. I'm going to give you 10 because.
I'll tell you if you're wrong.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So I'll probably do like 5 of my favorites, and then 5 ones that I'll name that maybe people haven't seen, and ones that we might even actually end up talking about a little bit later.
All right.
One of those is a movie called The 13th Warrior.
Yes, I will want to talk about that.
Based off of Michael Crichton novel called Eaters of the Dead. Then there's ones that really got me into film was Snatch with like Jason Statham and Brad Pitt. Then there's Memento, another one that really got me to you can think when you watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Miller's Crossing, my favorite Prohibition era film. The Fifth Element, really it's so good. I mean, you got Gary Oldman, Bruce Willis in his prime, Mila Jovovich. I mean, it's just beautiful.
I do have to cut in because on X there was a guy I follow, and he was like, it was your hot takes kind of thing, and he's like, The Fifth Element is the worst movie, and I said, it is a bad movie, but that doesn't mean I can't love it.
Yeah, no, it's no Aziz light. And then Life Aquatic. I'm a huge fan of Wes Anderson and all his films, but that one really strikes me. And a lot of his films are whimsical and weird, but they have a lot of heart to them. And that one specifically has a lot of heart and can be very sad. I'm also a big horror fan. Movies like The Shining and The Thing are ones that will always stick with me as well. I think that's like 8. We'll stick there, and maybe if people want to ask more later, then we can. I can go on about movies more. For hours.
So more. Also, really funny thing, CJ. Whenever Tim and I were dating, and we would talk about movies, but I'd always be like, "Oh, this film," and he was like, "You're the only people in the world who talk about movies and call them films. You're so pretentious about it, but it's your fault."
Yeah.
You said to me that Wes Anderson is your favorite filmmaker, and I just thought that was so funny.
As opposed to director. Yeah, no, right. He's up there. Oh yeah, no, that makes me think of another one. Oh, Brother Art Thou. That. I'll give that as the last one.
The best Odyssey retelling, apparently, as other people have said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so a question I have for both of you. Reading is obviously a different way to experience a story than through the visual medium of film. So in general, do you think they are equally valid experience of the same story, or what are some key things to remember when you compare those mediums?
Tim, I was just talking. You're up, buddy.
Yeah, all right. So I have a challenge answering that question just kind of from the perspective of, are we only talking about books that have been turned into movies or movies that have been turned into books? Because I think that there are some people who can, take something like maybe an epic or something that was an oral tradition, and you can do different things with that, and there's different pros and cons about different forms of media taking something else and turning it into that. But I think they're equally valid storytelling mediums, but typically my answer is going to be no, they're not equally valid if we're talking about taking the work of another person and changing it to your own interpretation and understanding and favorite parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
They might be equally as good and they might make equally as valid points as each other, but one of them is what somebody wrote, and then another person, usually it's another person, comes along and makes changes to what the original person wrote. So it is not a valid thing to do because it is changing fundamentally something that the author intended.
Mm-hmm.
However, that doesn't mean that it can't be done well and it can't make its own good point. But just by nature of, unless you're talking about the person who wrote the story also writing the screenplay for a movie, then I would say I have a hard time saying that they are equally as valid for the same work, although they can be equally as good and they can make separate points. One of them is the point that the author was trying to make, and the other one usually is not.
Mm-hmm. So CJ, your take on that?
So I kind of like where you're getting at there. I think of how people cover songs.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will do just a standard cover. I, as a musician, like to do a lot of covers because people don't want to hear my stuff. And so, but there are some songs, depending on, what your limitations are. And I think that sort of parallels with filmmaking as well, because you always have a studio or the production company that will sort of, handcuff you to certain standards. So it's a difficult thing, because I think I want to believe that a lot of people, if they're doing an adaptation, they want to bring that source material to life in whatever way they're doing it, because they're so passionate and caring about that. Now, that doesn't always come off that way, and I think sometimes it just doesn't do it justice. There's some songs that I prefer covers of, and there's other songs that they should have never been covered.
Right.
Because it just, you're not going to get to that point. Yeah. And when it comes to books and movies, I think you make a good point about validity. I think that both can be good. And I think that, along with the lines with the song covers, is that both can bring something fresh and new. But you have to understand, if you're doing something like that, you have an already, pretty intense fandom, because that's what we mostly are these days, are intense fandoms, that's going to pick apart everything you do. And so I feel like, have to be careful, especially if it's a certain story and especially when it comes to story beats and specific things that happen, because what might be my favorite part of a book might not be the director's favorite part of that book, and they might cut that part out. And sometimes that's going to cause issues for people. I mean, see the Harry Potters and things like that. I enjoyed the movies, but they really missed the mark on a lot of very important story beats from the books. Yeah. So,
I think the reinterpretation of a work, when you do that and you miss the actual point of what the author was trying to make, and you miss the heart of the story, and so that can be a problem. I didn't see it, but I heard Animal Farm as a reinterpretation of the book, and they were like, this is kind of weird and seems problematic. just something like that, or like even more mundane. I remember the Chronicles of Narnia movies, where the first one was really good and seemed to understand the points that Lewis was making, but then we got to Caspian and it made some choices that seemed to miss why the characters were developed the way that they were.
Sorry. So I think you make oh man, I lost my train of thought. I feel like if you're going to do a reimagining of something, try to think of something new, something inspired. We mentioned "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" It is not shot for shot, Odyssey.
Yeah,
it has elements, but it's set in a different time. It's set in a different era, and it brings story beats that are similar. And like sort of you have the sirens, you have the Cyclops, in their own ways. Excuse me. But I feel like if you're trying to do like a reimagining of something like Animal Farm, now I haven't seen it, but I've seen enough about it to where it's like you're missing the point of what the original story was.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much you want to sort of do that, like then find something like do something new. I mean, that's the one big gripe I have about the film industry these years or these days is that we're so scared to try to do something new. My favorite movies this year have been movies that are maybe they have similar concepts to other like past movies, but they're inspired. It's an inspiration and it's something new and fresh, and that's where you'll get something that's good. No matter you can't always recreate the magic that was in the book.
Right. You have a lot of films that are cannibalizing IPs, right? And just so that they can say we identify with this name, so you're want to watch it, but then it's kind of like they pull the rug out from under you, and it's something we just decided to do because we knew you'd watch it because we put the brand on top of it.
Right.
Yeah, believe me, so many times, especially since recently getting into a lot of audiobooks. It's broken my heart way too many times. Way too many times.
Yeah. But let's talk about one that I think actually does a fairly good job. And so recently, CJ, you had the privilege of reading one of Michael Crichton's novels. We're going to talk about Eaters of the Dead, but it was Jurassic Park. And
yes.
However, like all 90s kids, except for Timothy, because, he was really homeschooled, we experienced Jurassic Park as a movie first.
Maybe a little too young.
Maybe a little too young. I was like, I haven't let my 12-year-old watch it. I was like, I was watching that. I was like 9 years old.
Yeah, I think it came out in 95. I think I was 9 that year. So,
no, I was a lot younger then. Okay.
You were even younger.
Oh, no. Anyway, so what are some of the things that surprised you in the way the story was told on screen versus the novel?
So, it's very interesting. I've done what I've been doing a lot recently, whether I've seen the movie or not. If I start reading the book, I save what my memories are. Like maybe I'll sort of picture characters as what I know what their faces look like in the movie or whatever. But I tend to, say like once I'm done the book, let's watch the movie and see how it matches up or if it's as good as I remember now that I've read the book. Now, there are some very glaring differences between Jurassic Park the book and Jurassic Park the movie. Whether it's character deaths, character arcs, and even like main characters. A lot of the beats are very similar, but there's a lot of more added things I think that they probably couldn't do at that time in the 90s. It's still one of the best CGI movies ever in my opinion because I watched it after I read the book. So, but I think it's so weird because I feel like this is one that's different. It's a movie. The book is fantastic and the movie is fantastic, and they both basically do the same thing, but there's big enough differences where they sway in some pretty big points, and especially like the Hammond character.
Yes,
very different. He's sort of in the book. He's sort of your normal billionaire eccentric who just wants to make as much money as possible. In
Right.
the movie, he's a billionaire eccentric who loves kids and wants to make people as happy as possible. And the way that the book and the movie end are very different for Hammond in those instances. And then you even have a character like Dr. Grant, who in the movie hates kids, but in the book loves kids. And I think it works in both. In the movie, he's sort of forced to be like, oh, okay, this is something I don't like, and I have to, deal with these kids. In the book, he's a lot more like he cares about what they're. I mean, in the movie, he cares about their safety and everything, but in the book, it's a lot more prominent from the get-go. Mm-hmm. So, but this is weird where they're different, but I love them both, I think, equally. I think it just does. They both do such a great job of just, I don't know, telling a story. Yeah. Really.
So, Tim, did you ever read Jurassic Park, or did you only see the movie?
I never read Jurassic Park. I've read other Michael Crichton books, but I never got around to reading Jurassic Park. So, and my experience of Jurassic Park is very different from most other people's, because I first saw it when I was in my late teens, maybe even college. And so, it didn't grab me the way that most other people who were around when the movie came out. It doesn't hold quite as special of a place in my heart. Although I will say, I mean, there is still a nostalgia factor to it, and I still like it. And so I've talked with both of you about that book and talked about some of the changes of the characters. And I think this is one that, maybe going back to the first question you asked about the validity, I kind of was probably a little bit too harsh. I said, no, it's not valid. It can be done really well. It's just, I think maybe it's that it's just so rarely done well, where you can have a slightly different take, and yet you're still coming around to the same point, and you're making it in a really good manner. And so, and I think too, when you add in the sequels, you get some of those other characters. I think is it Hammond's son or son-in-law in the second one that actually reads in the movie of being greedy, going back to the island. We got to get back, and we got to make more profit off of it.
It's his nephew, I believe.
Nephew, okay. His nephew. So he kind of comes off more as the way that Hammond is in the books, at least as it seems in the movie. So they do end up representing kind of that personality, even though they kind of switch which character it is. So.
Yeah, and the hunter character that they add in the second movie is really a lot more representative of the way that Muldoon is in book one, where he's the one. He's a consummate hunter. He knows what he's doing. He knows animals, and he's saying, "You have all these problems," and he survives in the book, right?
Yeah. Actually, there's him and the lawyer survive in the book,
right?
But there's added characters, so they cut out some characters in the movie, but
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just I find it interesting because I want to get into The Lost World, which is a sequel book, and from what I understand, it is not even on the same, it doesn't even follow the same storyline because in the book, to spoilers, but the book's been out for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I think we get past spoilers at this point.
But Jeff Goldblum's character, I can't think of his name. What was his name? Ian Malcolm is injured really badly in the book, to where in the sequel he needs a cane to walk around, so he's not freely running around like he is in the movie. And I don't even believe he goes to the island in the book. I read up on it a little bit. I still want to get to the book. It's I hear it's a lot more scientific. So
I remember reading the book. It was a while ago, and I think it's Grant, really, isn't he? He goes back with because what's the other doctor? The paleobotanist. What's her name?
Sadler.
Ellie
Sadler, yeah.
She ends up getting pulled into something, and he has to go and save her. I think that's what happens in the book. Yeah. Oh. But so it's a really different plot, but it's kind of the same thing, where it keeps going on the iterations of all of the ways that life has continued, and it's still working off of the chaos theory of Malcolm. So But
Yeah,
all the same,
and they were
yeah.
they were very heavy on that in the book, and I love that they did get that line in the book and the movie. The whole
Mm,
life
finds a way.
finds a way. And so good, but
Iconic. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, CJ, you can answer this question too. Like, and it sounds like Tim kind of answered as well. But when we're comparing the book to this movie in particular, like it's hard to say for me, is the book or movie better, or should we put it in a different category altogether?
I mean, something that Tim said is sort of, this is one of those, and I said it too, where it's like a rare occurrence where it's just they both work in such a well way. Even some of the best movies that spawn from books, there's always going to be people that or even myself, I talked about the Harry Potter books, and I know we're getting to some other ones later.
Yeah.
Even like Eaters of the Dead, which I don't know, maybe it's the way they do Crichton in movie form, but I think they're perfect as they are, both of them, and I don't really have anything to nitpick about what they did or the changes they made from the book to the movie.
Yeah, so specifically, as talking about the 13th Warrior / Eaters of the Dead, we recently watched the 13th Warrior again. I recently read Eaters of the Dead, and I was so pleasantly surprised by the structure of the book, where they have this character who's recording these events as if he's writing a historical travelogue, which comes out in the movie a little bit, but it's more storytelling oriented, whereas the book feels like historical documents. And you find out that like Crichton actually did all of this actual real historical research at the time, so everything is actually like, it's like a historical fiction, but then he's making up this whole entire interesting story. So I really loved that, and I just was like, okay, I would read the book again and I would watch the movie again.
Yeah, the main character in the book was actually a real person who did journey. Fadlan, I think.
Yeah.
But they call him Eben in the movie because that means son of.
Yes.
Honestly, I feel like the book and the movie, and maybe it's because they were a little bit shorter too. Like those books were a little bit shorter, but that doesn't always translate too, because anyway, there was one main difference in the book from the movie. Well, actually two. One was in the book, he never learned their language. He had an interpreter the entire time. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is him learning their language.
Yeah.
And me and my parents and you and me have quoted it many a time.
So many times.
To Tim's detriment, I'm sure. But,
our kids hate it now. We'll just quote movies and they're like, "What are you doing? That's so lame." Sorry.
No. Sorry. That's what it is. We think we're cool still, and apparently we're not anymore. Nope. But they also had the scene with the dwarves in the book, and that was a whole thing. And they, like, in the movie, they sort of hinted at like some fantastical, magical, like fantasy style, but in the book, they really got into a little bit more fantasy of that like historical fiction style, which I did enjoy. But I think both were very valid. I still think I like the movie better, just because it's really random that they have a Spaniard playing a Middle Eastern. But
well, it is a product of its time, you should say.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of other Michael Crichton adaptations into film. Some of them I've seen, some of them I haven't, and I haven't read them. And I think it's probably time for my Michael Crichton summer, where I just read all of the Michael Crichton books that I want to read. Yeah. But we could talk about Michael Crichton all day. But unfortunately, because, the Rad River never got his fantastic Steven Spielberg, Michael Crichton crossover experience, he's kind of out of that conversation. But you do have a lot of opinions about another franchise. Always. And so it's finally time to air all your grievances. We're talking Lord of the Rings. So as we've said on previous episodes, we know that he has read / listened to the Lord of the Rings trilogy at least 20 times, probably more than that now. So we can all agree you're pretty serious about Tolkien. Yeah. So here's my question for you. Do you think the audience that Peter Jackson was initially trying to reach with the films he does, was it you? Was it your people? And then we can talk more about it.
So we don't have enough time to air all of my grievances. and this is it's kind of hard to say that, because my answer to that question is yes, I think it's people like me, but I am not now who I was when those movies came out.
Mm-hmm.
When those movies came out, I was, a 13-year-old boy who had not read Lord of the Rings, and I watched the first movie and I said, I need to read Lord of the Rings now. I think that was his audience. It was, I think, him saying, Lord of the Rings is excellent. I would love for more people to be into Lord of the Rings. I would love for Lord of the Rings to be a little bit more mainstream. And so he made a movie that perfectly accomplished that goal. He got it into the mainstream. He got more people talking about it. He got more people in love with Tolkien and the world of Middle-earth. And so I think he accomplished that. Now, 20 years later, I have issues with some of the choices that he made as he went along in the movies. And that's the hard part about this, is because when I look at it, I say, I watched the Fellowship of the Ring before I read the books. I started reading the books while Two Towers was still in theaters. And so I went to see Two Towers while I was still reading it. I hadn't finished Two Towers. So I saw it in the middle of reading it. Mm-hmm. And then I finished the books before I saw Return of the King. And my order of preference for those movies is The Fellowship of the Ring is the best, The Two Towers is okay, and I can't watch The Return of the King.
And we'll get to that.
Really?
We'll get to that. So, but all right, first though, let's talk about things that you like, though. So what did Peter Jackson do well, and what were some choices that maybe didn't match the novel experience but made sense for a visual storytelling medium?
He nailed the characters. I mean, the characters are great, and the actors. There's all the information out there that you can go and find. I don't need to repeat all of it to you that Viggo Mortensen was not the first choice, but I can't imagine seeing anybody but Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn.
That's where he broke his toe.
Right. Ian McKellen as Gandalf and Elijah Wood. Every character that he picked, I mean, probably because that's what I grew up with, and that's what those are the people we all know. Mm-hmm. But they did such a great job of getting those actors to inhabit those characters. I don't have any, I think that they did a fantastic job of getting the right actors and actresses, the right characters, and making those characters come to life in ways that were faithful to the characters, right? Mm-hmm. Merry and Pippin have a lot more to do in the books than they do in the movies, but they are great in the movies, and you come to love them in the movies, even though you don't know as much of their history and backstory as you would in the books. I think that they did a really good job in the first movie of getting you into the story and not answering all of your questions right away, but waiting until you get to Rivendell to start doing some of the exposition for some of the things. That's one of the challenges of making a film about Lord of the Rings is Lord of the Rings is not specifically just about this adventure. It is what this adventure is about, but it's taking place in the middle of a bigger story, a bigger world that is not being talked about in those books and in those movies. And so Tolkien takes his time building because he's like, this is just something else that's happening in the world that he had already come up with.
Right.
And when you sit down to watch a movie, that's not what you're going to see a movie for. So they did a good job with the pacing, I thought. So characters and pacing, I thought were excellent. Obviously, they did groundbreaking stuff in sound design and in set design and in CGI. All of it is incredible. I think they did a fantastic job of making the movies and of really bringing those characters and the story to life.
Right. Now, I do have to ask you, the lack of inclusion of Tom Bombadil, are you okay with that in the movie, or are you angry? They should have had Tom Bombadil.
I'm altogether on no one's side because no one is altogether on my side.
Oh no.
The answer is I'm okay with them not including Tom Bombadil. I am not okay with them not explaining how the hobbits got their swords and what those swords are, because this is still for some reason a hot take, because unless Merry had that sword, he would not have been able to stab the Witch King, and then Éowyn's sword wouldn't have done nothing to the Witch King. So the only reason that they win the battle in the end is because Merry has the blade from the Barrow Downs. That's never mentioned, and it's glossed over in the movies. And so now everybody thinks, well, a man didn't kill the Witch King, a woman did. And that's not the answer. The answer is a hobbit pierced the cloak so that a man could do it. It happened to be a woman, but mankind could kill the Witch King because a hobbit had pierced the veil.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go through the books again.
Yeah,
I don't even know that I picked up on that on my. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So I know
sorry.
I was going to ask you because you experienced it primarily as a film. Did you ever read the novels, CJ?
Yeah, so actually a couple of years ago, and I remember actually texting and chatting with Tim a lot as I was going through them, asking what he now. So I did the audiobooks of them because I drive a lot for work, so most of what my reading is through audiobook.
And we talk about that on our audiobooks podcast. So everybody, if you haven't seen that one, take a look at that.
Check it out.
Yeah.
So I actually remember the first time I heard about the movie. I was in an art class in high school, and these two nerdy kids, who were also kind of bullies, started talking about the trailer. The trailer had been released. Now, I think I had heard about the trailer. I didn't know that the books had existed. I really knew nothing about Tolkien or any of the Lord of the Rings lore or anything like that. I don't even think I ever read The Hobbit like in school, because I hear some schools have that as a required reading, but when the first time I saw it, I had to leave the movie early because of I don't know, something to do with after school curriculars, so it took a while for me to actually get through it, like from beginning to, I think there was only like 2 minutes left, but a lot happens in that period from the end, because the Fellowship disbands essentially. So going through the books, you were talking about Tom Bombadil. I think, it's interesting because I actually didn't know that you had seen the movies or at least the Fellowship first. Now, I saw all the movies first before going through the books. But I find it interesting that like the books are your bread and butter now, even after seeing the movies. I don't think I have as much as intense of an opinion about it. I will say that the extended versions add a lot more, and if you're going to go through the Lord of the Rings, that would be my recommendation if you've also read the books. Tom Bombadil. When the movies first came out, I tried to read the books, and I've always been bad at reading. That's why audiobooks are my bread and butter, and why it works for me. And so I remember I got to Tom Bombadil, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? Who is this weird, crazy guy that's just like whimsical and fun? And so I put that down and then started reading The Two Towers, and then the beginning of The Two Towers is just the orcs with Merry and Pippin, and I'm like,
oops, what I missed?
What is happening? So I am glad that I actually finally went through the books. I think the books are fantastic. I think Tolkien has a really great, obviously he's one of the masters of world building and just being able to just weave a tale into your mind. But yeah, I actually thought, Tim, that you liked all three movies, or at least the extended versions of the movies. But it's one of those things where I do, after reading the books, obviously there's enough difference about it. I think, adding the what they added in The Two Towers, at the battle for oh my goodness,
Helm's Deep.
Terrible. Helm's Deep, yeah, because the elves didn't show up in the book, right? Or
Correct.
and instead it was friends of Aragorn or like other Striders or whatever. Isn't that what it was?
No,
Am I wrong there?
Battle of Helm's Deep is Gandalf is not at the Battle of Helm's Deep because he's out gathering the rest of Rohan, and the rest of the Rohirrim come.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that's what saves them. Then it was just all of Helm's Deep that was trying to hold down the fort essentially until the Rohirrim showed up. So, but yeah, there was some, and like just what I found funny too is in the books in the movies from the get-go, it's like Aragorn and man, I'm so bad with the names because they're weird Elvish names. Who ends up eventually Liv Tyler's character. I can tell you
Arwen.
the actors who played them.
Arwen.
Yes. In the movies, it's very like, oh, they're in love and all this, and like they don't really touch on that a lot in the books. Or maybe just I didn't really pick up on a lot of it. Like I'm sure there was mentionings and everything, but it wasn't really until the end where it's like, oh yeah, and they got married and lived happily ever after and whatnot.
It's in the books. It's hints and foreshadowing. It's not. There's nothing explicit said. And also, I will say, I was under the impression that we were talking about the extended edition of the movie of movies because I have never watched the movies that are not the extended edition. I think
I do feel like those are the standard at this point. If you're gonna sit down and watch it, you go through the 12 hours and you suffer through it.
If you're gonna sit down for almost 3 hours, then sit down for 3.5 hours. It's not.
Yeah. So Timothy, we talked to like. You already mentioned some of the problems that you had with the film adaptation. I know you recently tried to watch Return of the King. So should we start there, or do you want to say maybe 3 points? Just like
all right, I'll give you a couple of things. One actually has to do with what I had mentioned earlier, which was they did a great job with the characters until the third movie when they did not. They got the character of Aragorn wrong, and they got the character of Sam Gamgee wrong in the third movie, and that is really frustrating because those are the two characters that it's kind of about.
Two most important characters.
Yeah. And so it's like you needed to get them right, and so when Frodo has Sam leave on the path to Cirith Ungol, like. It's hard to watch because when you read the books and love the books, the thing that comes out most clearly, and the thing that Tolkien talked about himself about most clearly, is that Sam Gamgee ends up being the hero because he's the one who gets Frodo to the end. And so having him leave for a while and Frodo to not trust him, you can't have that because the character of Sam is that he is always faithful, he is always trustworthy, possibly to a fault. Possibly when he had the ring and was in Mordor, he should have just taken it to Mount Doom, and he doesn't. He goes back and says, I'm going to risk the destruction of the world because I need to be at Frodo's side. You can't then... So taking that away from him is kind of frustrating for a fan of the books. And then the character of Aragorn. Aragorn knows before he meets the hobbits that meeting the hobbits is him becoming is his path to becoming king, and he is going to become the king. The reason he sets out from Rivendell with the company in the first book is that their path lays the same way for a while before he goes to Gondor to become king. He is planning before Gandalf dies. Spoilers. Before Gandalf dies.
Again, how many years later?
Yeah.
Aragorn's plan is to only go part of the way with the Fellowship and then leave to go to Gondor and become king. So to have 3 movies of him not knowing whether or not he can be king or whether he should be king or maybe he's not strong enough or maybe it's completely fabricated and ruins, I think, what was otherwise done so well with his character. He is the quote from Gandalf is he's strong underneath, and maybe he has risked maybe he's strong enough to face Sauron. Like that idea, which if you haven't read Lord of the Rings, I'm sorry, this whole thing has probably been upsetting to you, but the idea that Aragorn, a man, is strong enough to and has a stronger force of will than Sauron, who is, by the way, a level above man. He is an angel in a sense, or a demon. and that Aragorn is stronger and sterner underneath than Sauron. And so the whole reason that the whole plan works out is because Aragorn's strength of will is such that he forces the Dark Lord to fear him. That's not the character you get in the movies. And that's frustrating. When you flip a character and say, not only are we not going to show just how strong he is, we're going to tell you that he's weak. That's frustrating. So those are the two biggest issues that I have. And so the third movie, the first two movies, neither of those things are an issue for Sam and for Aragorn. But in the third movies, they kind of, all of the sudden, these two main characters are all of a sudden totally different than the way that they are in the books. And in fact, I think it hurts the story to have Aragorn not be on this conquest to destroy Sauron and to make up for mankind's failure. He is going to make up for mankind's failure.
Well, so I think the problem too, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's a misunderstanding of the theology and eschatology of the author, which is not something, if you are a secular filmmaker, grasping the importance of that for the author, they're not going to see it the same way. They're going to be like, oh, this is just a more interesting way to kind of tell the story, and we'll get to the same place at the end. Again, I've seen that done with Lewis's work, where you misunderstand. He's making a theological point with the way that these characters are developed. You know, and you're talking about a Lord of the Rings. These are pictures of Christ, right? So knowing that you're king is really important if you are a picture of Christ.
Yeah. It's the same. King Peter the Magnificent, right? And the movies of Chronicles of Narnia have to make Peter have this like moral conflict, and you're like, no, actually, the point was he always did what was right. That's the point of his character. The point of the character of Edmund is Edmund did not always do what was right, and the conflict that they have with each other, someone who always does what's right and someone who sometimes doesn't do what's right. That's the conflict. The conflict is not in the character, it's between the characters. And that's the part that the books tell you that the movies don't show you. So when you have a really good, really strong character who always does what's right in a book, often, not always, because obviously I haven't read every novel, but often in the books that I've read, usually you have that character there so that there is conflict between that character and other characters. Not because you're trying to say that everybody is like that. That person is unique, and that's what creates the conflict between the rest of the characters.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's like a million more things we can say about that, but we are running short. So I do have one thing I do want to add to this, and that's when I talk about film adaptations of stories that I think actually ended up being a better experience than the book. And my one is the book Stardust by Neil Gaiman. So I saw the movie first, and I thought this was a perfect little fairy tale where, the conclusion where, so part of the plot is that for the fallen star, this woman is a fallen star in the fairy tale, and if you possess her heart, if you eat her heart, that's how it's interpreted, you can live forever. And at the end of the movie, the way that her heart is possessed is that she falls in love with the main character. And it's really it's like a perfect thing. But in the book, that is not the case. That's not something that's touched on. And I found that the book was like a much darker fairy tale. There was more like vulgarity and sex in it. And it was just like not what I was expecting. And I think it was actually ultimately not as successful of a story as the movie adaptation. So that's my thing. I don't know if you guys read or seen that, but that's that. But if you have, can you pick, both of you, pick one, maybe think about it, film adaptation that you thought ended up being a better than the book, and you can explain why.
I mean, I have one I can go, and unless you got one to. All right. So mine is the Shining. So I did see the movie first, and there's actually a lot of questions because it is very different. It's the same somewhat story, but just a couple of years ago, I read the book, and I was really excited to read the book. And it didn't capture the fear that the movie sort of brings out of you. there's a lot of incoherent things that happen in the movie, and there's actually a whole documentary about it called Room 237. Highly recommend it, because a lot of people think that Stanley Kubrick directed that movie and was telling the world that he had faked the moon landing video. Really great. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about it, but overall, just Jack Nicholson as the Jack Torrance character is so fantastic. He's terrifying. And I just think it's obviously one of my all-time favorite horror films, but just a great film in general when it comes to seeing a person basically just break down and go insane. And the books they had a little bit happier ending, or the book had a little bit happier ending, and they did the made for TV version that follows the book a little bit better, because I know Stephen King did not like the 70s movie, but I just think it did a better job of bringing out the fear that you would expect out of such an iconic book. And the book didn't bring that to me. So yeah, that's mine.
I actually have a couple, and they are they're actually done by the same group. It's the Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island.
Yes.
Those are perfect movies, and they're better than the books. I've read both of the books. The Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppet Treasure Island are better. But if I was going to give a serious answer,
no notes. That's perfect answer.
Yeah. Also, I have heard tell that if they did that with Lord of the Rings, it would probably be perfect.
Yes.
A Muppet playing Samwise.
Yes.
Wonderful.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
I am 100% behind a Kickstarter for the Muppets to do Lord of the Rings.
You hear that?
If I was going to give a serious answer, it would probably be, and I don't know if this is fully better. This might be more one where you go, okay, they were very different, but I think both good. But it's actually a movie that's not very popular. It's Ender's Game. Ender's Game, the movie, did not do very well, and from what I understood, many of the people that read and enjoyed the book did not really like the movie. They're very different, and that's the thing to kind of go into it with. They are very different, even though they're telling the same story. But man, there's so much philosophy and politics in the books, and so much psychology, and like, it is so heavy and dense to read the book. The story of Ender, the character of Ender, and what is going on, and how he is taken advantage of, and how he is used, is a really compelling science fiction story. But it is mixed with at least half of the book being just political science. And so if you're not like actually into political science and reading philosophy and Hume and Descartes, then like you're probably not going to enjoy reading the book. But the movie is accessible. So I don't think it was a perfect movie. I don't think it perfectly adapted the book. And I don't know that the movie was better than the book, but they're just very different. And so if you're like, hey, could I get this book in 2 hours? I go, yeah, you can get the main story of that book in 2 hours. Just watch the movie.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that is all the time we have for today, but I'd love to hear our listeners' thoughts. So which books made great movies, which movies did better than the books, and which adaptations ruined your entire experience in life? All comments welcome. Once again, just thank you for coming. CJ, thank you for joining us. This was a great conversation.
Thank you guys so much. I love it. Hey, give me a call anytime. I'll especially if it's something movie related. I got to catch up on you guys on books a little bit, but
we're good on pop culture. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, I'll say this: you watch some cool movies, but remember, read rad things. Talk to y'all later.
All right.